You find a wallet with $300 in it. What do you find in the wallet that makes you keep the money? I found a wallet with $2,300 in it, and I tracked the guy down. He was very rude and said it alling better be here. Counted it out and then didn't say anything else. I wished I had kept the money after seeing the hole that lost it. I had the same thing happen to me with a credit card. I found on the ground at a gas pump at a gas station. It had a business name on it, so I googled the business and called and told her that I found her credit card at the gas pump at X gas station. And I was bringing it to the cashier, and she angrily demanded my name and personal information as if I had stolen her card. Some P.O. pleasant thing. No form of identification or anything with a name on it. I found a phone as a kid on a parking lot floor, and my dad, his date, and I walked around until we saw someone very lost and looking around, and they described the phone and we have it back to him. He was so lovely and gave me $20. I think I was like 7 years old. I was happy enough just to find someone's stuff and give it back to them, then getting $20. Oh, I was so excited, haha. My dad's date tried refusing the money, saying I didn't need it, and I was too young for it, but Dad thought it was a lovely gesture. I don't think he saw her again, lol. She didn't have any kids. Once I found around $800 in cash near the entrance to a Whole Foods. I turned it into customer service and they asked me for my phone number and said that if no one had claimed it in 48 hours, they would give it to me. About 2 hours later, I got a phone call from a girl nearly in tears thanking me because that was her money for rent. So, I feel like even if you find no context with money or a wallet, there are ways to try to get it back to whoever it belongs to. When I was about 10, I found a $5 bill near of our corner store. I ran home and showed my mother and was excited as $5 was a lot of money in 1967. My mother looked at it and said a child dropped this. I asked how she knew. She said it was folded over several times into a small square, and only children do that. She made me bring it into the store and tell Mike, the proprietor, to hold it until someone claims it. I did so, but was really bummed out, but was hoping nobody would claim it. Next day I went in and asked Mike about the $5 and he said soon. After I dropped it off, a young girl came in about my age crying that she lost her family's grocery money and her mother furiously sent he back to look for it. I learned a couple lessons that day. 1. Don't be too eager to profit off someone else's misfortune. 2. My mother was really smart. When I was a kid, I was walking home with my friend and we found a $20 in front of a small butcher deli. We went in and asked the cashier if they knew if anyone dropped it. They said no and to keep it, so we did. We got halfway down the block, we heard a woman scream, "Wait," and turned to see her literally sprinting towards us. She asked us if we were the ones who found her $20, and when we said yes and handed it to her, she broke down crying and hugged us. She needed that money to feed her own kids and was devastated when she thought she lost it. Even small amounts of money can make a huge difference to some people. Found a wallet outside my work with about $600 in it. Didn't recognize the face as a co-worker's, so I brought it home and mailed it to the address on it the next day. I've been getting Christmas cards from them every year since then. I found a wallet with about $350 and a Florida ID. I live in NYC. The person looked like they could be about student-aged, so I wasn't sure mailing the wallet to Florida was gonna be the fastest way to help them. Luckily, they also had a Wells Fargo debit card, so I went to a Wells Fargo and they were able to contact the guy. Glad it all worked out. Makes me think, too, of a story I read about a guy who studied sleight of hand magic tricks as a cover for learning to pickpocket. First time actually pickpocketing, he pulled a wallet with like $500 cash from a guy on the bus, and then wondered why somebody riding a city bus would have that much, and concluded that it was probably rent or something else important. This would have been back when debit cards were starting to be more popular, too. He gave the man his wallet back, claiming it had been on the floor, and never tried that again. Found a total of 3 wallets during my time here in New York City. 2 had no cash but ID and credit cards. 3rd had $20 and all the other stuff. Hunted down all 3 and gave them back. All were just happy to get the ID back, which is a to-run place. Lost mine after all this and had the same done for me. Karma is not always I was just vacationing in the tropics. found a wallet on the beach. No money, but ID, CCs, Medicare card, etc. Checked the FB and a few other major socials, but couldn't find anything. Googled the name and city or state and found her workplace. They got us in touch and we got it back to her about an hour later. She hadn't even noticed it was missing yet. When we met up, she offered $50 that I tried to politely decline, and she basically threw it at my spouse. Really, it wasn't a big deal. Just some Googling and phone calls while we were sitting on a beautiful, sunny beach sipping a heavily overpriced frozen beverage. But we understood that we were in US territory and she may not have brought a passport. So potentially her only ID and all her easy ways to get money were in the wallet. Getting home was going to without it. Was the right thing to get it back to her. Hope someone does the same if I'm ever in the same situation. If there is no way of identifying the owner. A few years ago I was downtown in my city and found about $700 in cash blowing in the wind. Also right next to the money was a deposit slip from the local bank that was about a block away. There was no information in the slip, but trying to be a good Samaritan, I went to the bank and asked the teller if they happened to know if someone had recently taken out a few $100s. They thought they knew who it was and called the person. The person they called initially said of course they had the money and that it was in their jacket pocket, but after the teller asked them to check, they found it was missing. This was an older man with a fixed income and it was to pay rent. When I found the money, I initially was tempted to keep it. I had been out of work for a month and also was in a tight financial spot, but I'm glad that it ended up going back to the original person. Sometimes I wonder if karma is real, because a week later I landed a job offer making considerably more than I was making at my previous employer. I lost a wad of bills equaling about $550 on my university campus in one of the most crowded campus buildings. No way to identify it as mine given that it's literally just rolled up bills, not even tied together. I reported it to campus police on the off chance. It managed to get returned but assumed it was gone. I knew a lot of students who struggled to feed themselves and afford rent even with multiple jobs. $550 could have done a lot for them, and I wouldn't have blamed people who felt they needed the money for taking, especially since you wouldn't expect to be able to give it back to the owner. Lo and behold, a week or so later I received a call from the campus police saying someone had turned in a wad of cash matching the amounts I stated, and in the area I said the cash was most likely dropped in. I was absolutely elated. And that experience definitely gave me some more faith in people and encouraged me to be the type of person who would do the same. It certainly wouldn't feel right not showing kindness when such kindness was shown to me when I needed it. Over 20 years ago, my mom was driving country roads towards home. She noticed some papers blowing across the road and stopped and saw it was cash. Hundreds of dollars spread across the road. Of course, she picked it up and was looking all around for where it was coming from before continuing on her drive. A bit down the road, a man was pulled over, frantically searching inside his truck. She rolled down the window to ask if he was okay, and he told her he had cash sitting in his front seat, and he stupidly opened the window and it blew somewhere. So she gave him back the money she found and where she had found it. He was obviously super thankful, and I think gave her like $20 as a thank you. When she told me the story later, she said, "I really wanted to keep that money, but I had to give it back." When I was in Scouts, I found that their best way if there's no it is to ask them what was in the wallet. Once when we went camping and it rained so hard our tents got flooded and I forgot my wallet in tent. Scott Matter asked me what I had in my wallet, and I was carrying a $2 bill at the time because I thought it was cool, told him that and got it back. If there's anything unique in there, the owner will remember what it is. It's like asking someone claiming to own a phone to unlock it. If they're not the owner, they won't be able to. I honestly feel that does more to prove ownership than, say, someone trying to break in after stealing it. I once found a wallet with approx $2,000 when I was a teenager. The money was inside a hidden compartment. I handed over it to the police. Turns out some elderly person got his apartment broken into, and the thief stole his wallet but didn't find the $2,000, so threw it out on the curb. Police called me 1 hour after and told me the son wanted to meet me and thank me. He handed me a $50 that I accepted. It might not seem much, but I was really proud of myself, and there's so much gratification in seeing someone really happy. When my grandpa was getting older and slower, he lost his wallet with the contents of his entire cashed pension check for the month inside of it. He never trusted banks. No one turned it in. He refused to accept money from his kids and just ate nothing but oatmeal for 2 months straight to make up for it. He had no other income, and this tiny bit stowed away to cover his rent and oatmeal. I was once shopping in a thrift store when I found a wallet with a bunch of cash and no ID. However, there was a bank deposit slip receipt. I didn't want to turn it over to the thrift shop personnel because some of them were pretty seedy, so I just jumped in my car and drove across town and handed it over to the bank, asking them to find out who it belonged to and contact them. Then I went back to the thrift store to continue my shopping. When I got there, the thrift store personnel were ransacking the store, and a woman was weeping over the lost wallet. I told them what I had done, not mentioning why I had done it, but everyone was happy in the end. I found a $100 bill on the ground of a high school football game when I was 11. Righteous young me went to the gate guy and gave it to him. He told me I'd get it at the end of the game if no one came looking for it. This was at the beginning of halftime. At the end of the game, I went to the gate incredibly excited for what I thought would be my chance at getting 2 GameCube games. A new guy was at the gate. Asked him about the other guy and was told he went home after halftime. Asked if anyone claimed the 100. He said, "What 100?" I explained what happened and was told he definitely took it home. Found a wallet with just shy of $3,000 in it in Walmart parking lot. Had rubber bands keeping it closed. Recognized the guy was part of the housekeeping contractors at my job. This was on a Friday after work, and housekeeping isn't in on the weekends. I was off that next Monday but went up there to take it to him. He doesn't speak any English, but he started crying when I handed it to him. Didn't even count it, just pulled out $200 and gave it to me. I've gotten 2 dozen steaming hot fresh tamales at least twice a month for the last 3 years now. I got home from the airport very late one night after a long work trip. I tossed some paper bags from fast food in the recycling bin on my way into the house, not realizing that I also had my wallet in that hand. In addition to my credit cards and some cash, it had my green card in it, which is over $500 to replace. About a week later, some dude showed up on my doorstep saying he worked at Waste Management on the sorting line and spotted it. He had pulled it out, which I'd guess he's probably not even allowed to do, and drove 15 miles to my house to hand it to me personally. I gave him all the cash that was in there, which was about $150. One of those fake bills that are actually little pamphlets with Bible verses on them. I got tipped at $10 once as a bartender. Sweet old man just wanted a Coors Light in a bottle. I think it was $2.5 at the time. He reached into his back pocket and said, "Here's a little something for you." I lit up like a Christmas tree and asked if he was sure. He said yes, and I thanked him. At the end of my shift is when I realized I had been duped. It was like a punch in the gut because I was really broke at the time, working 2 jobs and going to school. The cherry on top, I was newly atheist. It's a Confederate flag wallet. I once found a cell phone someone lost in a park. The lock screen was a group of people in KKK robes, and the password, which didn't take many guesses on my part, was 1488. I considered either dropping it in a trash can somewhere, or popping out the SIM card and SD card and keeping it for myself, but benefit of the doubt won out, and I called a contact labeled Mom to let her know that her son or daughter lost their phone and I had found it. Mom showed up 20 minutes later with a crying child in tow. Couldn't have been more than 12 or 13 years old. It was the kid's phone, and it seemed pretty clear he had no idea what the stuff on his phone actually meant. He was just trying to be edgy. His mother was absolutely appalled by what was on the phone. Said she was going to supervise his online activity much more closely and that she didn't want him associating with those sorts of people. So, kid got his phone back and hopefully some positive moral takeaways from the whole affair too. That kinda changed my outlook on taking things like that at face value. If I found a Confederate flag wallet, I'd probably return it and hope that whoever it belonged to was just a really weird Dukes of Hazzard fan. I was cleaning my yard a few years ago and found a wet envelope in my bushes. I picked it up and it felt kinda heavy. I couldn't read the address since the ink was washed out, but I could kind of read the name. I opened the envelope and there was $10,000 cash in it. It would have been nice to keep, but I don't need it or want to keep it since it looked like someone was trying to send cash money in the mail for whatever reason. I called our HOA manager and asked if there was a homeowner in our neighborhood with the name on the envelope, and she confirmed that there was. She managed to get a hold of the guy, asked him if he had sent some money in the mail recently. He said yes and was able to verify the amount that was in the envelope, and was happy to hear it was found. He authorized her to give me his address and I took it over to him. He lived about 5 houses down the street from me. The guy was in his 80s and was sending some money to his daughter to help her buy a new car so she can get to work and take her daughter to and from school. It turns out that someone ran over his mailbox the day he put the money in his mailbox, and he didn't find out till later the next day when the mailman came knocking to ask about the mailbox. We concluded that the wind blew the envelope down the street to my house, because he recalled it was quite windy that day. He had already sent another $10,000 to his daughter and she had already received it. I found out that the money envelope had been in my bushes for about a month before I found it. Anyway, he was very grateful that I returned the cash and tried to give me $1,000 as a reward, but I declined. I didn't return it for a reward. I returned it because of the possibility of the exact situation the money was in. I know if I was in that situation, ding money to family and it got lost, I'd be just as grateful that it was returned. I just recommended to him to take the money to a bank for a cashier's check or something other than cash in the future. He agreed that was a better idea and would go that route next time. I saw him from time to time and helped him a few times with some things around his house that appeared to be neglected. He recently moved to a senior living community closer to his daughter and granddaughter. I hope he is doing okay and enjoying his remaining years with his family. I'd only keep it if there was no way to identify the owner, no ID, address, customer rewards cards, etc. A few years ago, I found a checkbook in a parking lot with a few $100 bills tucked inside. Since the checks had a name and address, I was able to return it to the elderly gentleman who had dropped it. Turns out that was his rent money, and if he hadn't gotten it back, he would have been evicted. You never know what kind of situation someone might be in, and taking advantage of someone like that just feels icky. Probably nothing. The feeling is so nice when you can do something good. I can feel the dopamine rush into my brain. This $300 nothing compared to that. Few years back, I found some lady's Gucci handbag. I googled it up and it cost a few thousands. Also, the girl's purse was in the bag and I found her ID plus 200 euros. I found her easily through Facebook Messenger and we met. She thanked me like 1,000 times and gave me half of the money from her purse, so 100 euros. I tried to resist, but she was not giving up, so I took the money. I was 16 or 17 back then, and my only thought was what if someone else had found her handbag? So not only she was lucky, I was also lucky to find it before someone else did. Still feel good when thinking about it. I had this happen on my way into my serving shift in college. It was a black wallet that was really well camouflaged by the black tarmac of the parking lot. I picked it up, opened it, and it was our head chef's. In it he had like 2,000 in cash, a bunch of pictures of his kids, and several sobriety coins. I teared up a bit when I saw those coins. I went inside and found him. I handed him his wallet, and he bawled. Apparently he was freaking out that he lost it, because all his rent or bill money was in it. My food was always amazing after that, and my man could take care of his family. It takes nothing to be kind. I could never ever keep anything ever. 10 years ago I was in New Zealand for a year for work and travel. I accumulated $1,000 over the time and was heading to Thailand to spend it when my time was done. I closed my bank account out, my visa, plane tickets, passport, everything in my wallet. Long story short, I forgot it in a bus, instantly recognized and ran after it but couldn't catch up. I was devastated and ready to go to the embassy for help. Next morning I went to the lost and found of the bus company and everything was there. An old lady found it and gave it to them. I wanted to leave $300 there, but she didn't even leave a name or contact info. I shed some happy tears. Wherever you are, old lady, I love you and will return the favor if I ever have the chance. Little late, but why not? I was at the river in Parker, and I was drinking my beer floating off the shore, enjoying the sun and peace. I look at the water for some reason and I see a wallet floating by. I'm like, no way, must be somebody we are camping with. I pick it up out of the water and look inside, and there must have been $800 cash. I look at the ID and realize it's nobody we are with. I ended up finding the guy on Facebook and he was like 5-6 campers down, and I returned it to him. Turns out dude cashed his entire paycheck. which he just did, and lost it while on a jet ski. He left and came back with 3-30 packs of Coors. Be a friend. Help somebody out. I always tell myself, maybe one day I will be in his shoes and somebody will do the same. I lost my wallet back when I was in third year of my college. It had all of my cards and about $3,000 in cash. I was a daily traveler, would catch a bus to home from college every day, and home was 80 kilometers away. I tried asking a few strangers for money. No one helped out. Went to the police station and told them my situation. They helped me lodge a complaint, and one of the officers was kind enough to lend me enough money to get back home. Around 7-8 weeks later, some random guy calls me and tells me he found my wallet, and that he could give it to me. Was so damn happy that I found it that I cried again. I didn't care about finding my money in there, nor was I worried about all the extra procedures I'd have to go through now that I had already replaced my bank cards and raised a complaint. I gave the guy $500 for being such a good dude, and we both parted ways. If you're reading this and are a person who steals stuff for a living, please make sure to return your stolen wallets once you've got what you need. For a lot of people, wallets are a highly personal and customized EDC, and a lot of thought goes into making a choice. So if you needed the money, take the money, but return the wallet, please. If I found a wallet with ID, credit cards, or something with someone's name, I'd find a way to return it to them. If it was empty except for cash, hard to identify who it belongs to, so finders keepers. With that said, if I knew someone is looking for said wallet, was able to describe it, and knew how much money it had in it, I'd return it to them. Once, while trail riding, I lost my wallet with driver license, credit cards, and $80.0. After looking for it and not finding it, I thought it lost for good. A week later, a package arrived in the mail, with my wallet intact with nothing missing. Inside was a note saying another fellow dirt biker had found my wallet. I sent them back a thank you note with $20.0 reward. I still have a karma debt I need to repay someday. I found $60 outside my house on the sidewalk, just laying there folded up, no wallet or anything. I stared out the window all day waiting for someone to give me some indication they were looking for something they lost, but never found anyone to return it to. Losing $60 you were counting on can be a big difference to a lot of folks. I left it folded up in my wallet for like a year before I finally spent it. Just didn't feel right. I was poor after growing up and was going on an overnight field trip with school. My grandpa gave me like $40 to spend on souvenirs, etc. I don't believe I had ever had that much money of my own to just spend on whatever I wanted. And I lost it at the barbershop the day I left for the field trip, knowing there was zero possibility of having any spending money for the trip. It was a huge bummer being so excited to have a few bucks to spend for once and then in just losing it. Give people their back if you can.